All right. Hello there, guys and gals and non-binary pals. It's That D&D Podcast, and we're back again for another installment of our Improbable interview segment. Before we introduce our special guest for the evening, I guess let's go around and tell you who we are so you can associate our voices with face. I don't know why. Just bear with me. So my name's Aaron. She, her pronouns, if that comes up. I DM our Dungeon World Mega campaign right now, and I'm playing in Mike's 5th edition campaign. So that's me. Go, Mike.
Oh, hi. I'm Mike, pronouns are he, him. I'm running the 5th edition campaign on Thursdays and City of Mist on every other Saturdays. And I play in Zach's game.
Perfect. Zach.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Zach, he, him. I am running the Argent City Superheroes campaign that Mike's been in one session of, and we're trying to get scheduled some more. And I play in everything that Mike runs, apparently, is what happens. So, yeah, that's me.
And now let's go introduce our special guest for tonight. Kira, why don't you give us the rundown on who you are as a human being?
Sure. I'm Kira Magrann, and I'm a queer cyborg game designer. I live here, and I'm a snake mom. Those are the most important things, I guess.
It's an underappreciated kind of mom, I would just like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Snake moms are valid.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I love snakes, and I feel very validated right now.
Good. That's what we're here for, and also to interrogate you for approximately an hour.
Cool. I'm ready.
So
Bring it on.
I guess first things
There's
first.
4 lights.
Yeah. Shit. Nice. Okay. Hold on. Train of thought. Okay. So, you always kind of introduce yourself, from what I've seen in videos and just now, as a queer cyborg.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that term?
I would love to explain that term, Aaron. I don't know that. It's my term. Queer isn't, obviously. Queer is pretty straightforward. So queer sexual identification, but then cyborg gender identification. So I recently kind of jokingly started identifying as queer or as a cyborg online, on the internet. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it just kind of stuck. I'm really into cyborgs. Part of my queer birth, I feel like, that's a weird thing to say together.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine.
I don't know what you call that. When you start realizing all these things are coming together and you're like, oh, this is part of my queer identity, but I don't really know what that is yet because you're young and you don't know what that is.
Your calcification.
Calcification. That's a great word.
Thanks.
Was Major Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. And she's a cyborg, and she's queer. And the whole lot about her is that, she has a lot of physical gender identifiers that are transient. So, her body is constantly being remade and rebuilt and changing. And, the way that she's animated, her shoulders are very broad, and she has a lot of, masculine gestures and behaviors. And I was really drawn to that. I was like, yeah, that's me. And so recently, I'm really into. Have you ever read Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto?
I don't think so.
It's really cool. Even if you're not into cyborgs, it's a piece of it's feminist theory. Mm-hmm. I guess you say it's academic theory. Donna Haraway is an academic, and she talks about the cyborg as kind of a rejection of goddess feminism. So stepping away from, women having to be tied to nature, and instead women embracing technology and using that for activism and to kind of describe the complexity of their political selves.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's super cool. So it's called the Cyborg Manifesto. that's another reason I'm super into cyborgs, is a gender thing.
For those of you who are in the Twitch chat right now, Mike and I both just posted a link to where you can find the Cyborg Manifesto.
Oh, good job. That was super fast.
We kind of keep like a reading list, so
yeah,
we can go back and catch up on everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's not very long. It seems, because it's academic, but it's only like 20 pages or something. It won't take too long. There's amazing lists in it. I love the lists.
So how's it been kind of putting yourself out there as a voice for like queerness and queer theory in just on the internet in general and in kind of the tabletop game space?
Whoa, that's a heavy question. Yeah, I mean, I think I think that it's hard. I'm definitely in a vulnerable position when I do it. Mm-hmm. I've been doing it for a long time, just in different ways. Like, I used to be on Story Games in the Forge, which are like old forums that indie game designers would kind of hang out at and talk about game design.
Right.
And I was pretty much out about that in those environments, and I just kept doing it. I think it's an important thing to talk about. I think it's important to be a visible queer, genderqueer person in gaming spaces so that other genderqueer, queer people can look at you and be like, cool, there's someone like me. I'm welcome in this space. And I think even if it's hard for me to do it, that it's important to do it because of that.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah. It helps with diversity. There's actually been like I help out with Games on Demand at Origins and Gen Con, which is like this gaming space that helps promote mostly small press game designers so that they can kind of run their games in that space, or they can't be there. And looking into research on how to diversify those spaces at conventions, I learned that having someone who is on the leadership team, who is like basically make your leadership team look like you want the group to look like. And so if you have someone who's visibly queer, visibly genderqueer, visibly a person of color, visibly disabled, then that's what your space will look like. So yeah, activism.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. We actually talked to Andrew last week about the difficulty of Andrew Gillis. I'm on their last name. Yeah, on the difficulty that a lot of marginalized folks have of just making that first step to get into games, right? To go and put themselves in that space. And I'm sure that having a friendly face that sort of looks like yours, in either literally or figuratively, probably helps quite a bit with that transition. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a lot of work or burden to put on marginalized people to do as well, because we already have like lower resources. It's like a catch-22. It's like, how do you I think we're all learning, we're all trying to do better because we care. At least in the gaming spaces that I'm a part of, and that I care. I think you can't fix all of gaming, but you can make it better in this corner, and hopefully it will like bleed out.
Yeah, you can only really change your own behaviors in your own space, but
and then hope it kind of filters out.
There.
Yeah. Andrew Gillis is doing Magical Girls.
Yep.
Girl by Moonlight. Yeah. I'm gonna be playing on in their game. They're doing a Twitch playtest of it in like 2 weeks or something. Yeah, so
cool.
I'm a good playtester because I went to art school and I have a razor sharp design critique mind, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad. But definitely. Excuse me.
Okay.
I think we had a minor connection hiccup there for a second.
Yeah. I thought so too. I think my video was very low.
Maybe so. It looks like it's back to normal now.
It's going up and down. I apologize. I don't know why.
So speaking of Andrew Gillis, last week we talked about their plans to kind of make a like a positive social problem solving, setup within groups to where it's not all violence focused as a theme and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you've got a game, a Cozy Den, I think it's called, that seems to have that kind of feel to it too, sort of. You wanna talk a little bit about that game?
Yeah, absolutely. This is my new gaming agenda. It's the same thing that Andrew, I guess, was talking about, where I'm super into cyberpunk. I love Ghost in the Shell. I love violence. I don't know what's something. I'm watching Jessica Jones season 2 right now. Like, Jessica Jones is a super violent show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's not like I don't like violent media. It's just that I think games is 99% violent media.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that thinking about why that's the case instead of just making more violence is important. Like, are we only having 50 pages of combat rules because D&D does it? Or is this game actually about combat?
Mm-hmm.
And so so I'm making a bunch of games about this, actually. A Cozy Den is one of them, the one I just came out with. Yeah, and it's a cozy game is the concept.
The world could use more of those.
I think so too. I actually, I was writing this game, and then I found out about this study that I don't know who did it. It's like this group. I can link it. It's, I don't know. It's a cozy game study. Maybe you can find it quickly because you're amazing at Googling. But it basically defines what coziness is in mostly video games, and it's kind of like a sense of, there might be competition, but it is not dangerous competition, and there might be things at stake, but there are like small things at stake instead of serious things at stake. You might always have like an animal companion nearby, or there might be like food or cooking involved, and like all these things basically define like coziness in a game. And I was like writing my game A Cozy Den at the same time, which is basically about creating a cozy den for the winter time, and these fantastical creatures that you play that are half snake, half lesbian.
Okay.
So you play lesbian snakes is the concept. So it's a queer game. But I wanted to kind of make it about like the intersection of like lesbian communes, like lesbian living spaces, mm-hmm. and snake dens, like two things I was obsessed with at the time.
I'm trying to find a way to squish
so that's
snake and lesbian together. Like, I got hispian, and that's about it. That's the best I can do.
They're lesbian snakes is what I settled on. It's not perfect, but
that's a tough one to portmanteau, but I think you got a pretty good one out of that.
Yeah, so thank you. So what's cozy about it is basically the conflict is all domestic conflict. Like, you're stuck in this space, this living space together for the course of a winter. How do you navigate that among yourselves? And that's what all the conflict is built around that. And it's an apocalypse world hack. And all the moves are like, wrestling and cuddling and rearranging the den. And like, I can't remember the other things. And then it's GM-less. So you basically like pick cards that are threats. And then it's like, here, a threat is presented to you. What do you do? And you have to basically like maintain your den coziness number throughout the winter in order to succeed at having a cozy den. That's the game. It's cute, and also I don't know, it's a little bit like Avery's map game. Can't remember the name of that right now, where you're like, you have to go through the seasons and
Quiet Year. A Quiet Year.
Yeah. It's a little bit like it shares some stuff with that, I think, and a few other things that I had some inspirations from. But
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, it has wrestling, so I guess that's violent. But
It has snake lady wrestling, which I mean, that ticks a lot of boxes for somebody. I promise.
okay, have you? It does. It is ridiculous anime shit. But also, have you ever seen videos of snakes wrestling?
Yeah.
It is amazing.
It's pretty cool.
It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead.
Wait, snakes wrestling each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a knot that's alive.
Imagine humans that had like the spinal column didn't have to stay straight, right? And they just like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
they just
cool.
like they try to get on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So males and ladies, I don't know how to. Men and lady identified snakes will like will both do this, and it's like, how do you don't know what the snake's chosen gender? Like,
It's true.
But they'll like get into territory arguments most often, and to settle them, they don't like bite each other and they don't like wound each other in any way. They'll wrestle. And wrestling is just like they wrap around each other until one of them determines that the other one is stronger, and the weaker one slithers away.
It's easy enough.
That is utterly fascinating.
Yeah.
It's super cool. It's kind of like a I don't know. It's not a super violent way to figure out a dispute for animals, basically.
It's non-harming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to put a completely different spin on it, it's like, say you had a younger brother and you wanted to like figure out who controlled the television remote that night. Like, it's you're not hurting them, but if you wind up sitting on top of them, you win.
Yeah.
That's how this is, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Turkish oil wrestling?
Yes.
It's, if I remember correctly, it's like two people who are super oiled up, and your goal is to you put your body into the other person's pants.
Yes. I think that I saw it on an Anthony Bourdain episode or something.
It sounds
like a place you see that.
Yeah. Because Anthony Bourdain would.
Yeah.
But
okay, did any of y'all have a question? I don't want to like monopolize all the time.
I am totally sidetracked by Turkish oil wrestling and snake wrestling. So.
Mike is lost now. Mike is forever lost to us.
Look up a lot of snake wrestling videos. They never get old for me.
There were black mambas on a golf course I was just watching, and they were just like intertwining, and it was like oddly it's pretty, but like, what's the word where you kind of like entrancing? There you go.
Yeah. It is like that. And also all snakes do it. And when snakes have sex, it looks very similar. They just kind of get on top of each other, and then they'll like wriggle around. There's actually a documentary that has a very sensual video of snake sex. I was blushing watching. It's like on YouTube. It's like Nat Geo's snake documentary or something, and like at the end, it's like here's how two snakes have sex, and it's like this British announcer. You know, I don't know. I'm totally sidetracking. I could talk about snakes. I'm obsessed with snakes.
There's like a really smooth bass line in the background of this like Nat Geo special.
Well, it's the right narration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the kind of British narration. I don't know.
Yes, I think British narration of anything is pretty sexy. So
it's also a really good way to get like real mellow and just drift off to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David Attenborough being there was the only reason those two snakes were getting it on in the first place. So
I think it was David Attenborough.
Oh God.
I know, because you just picture him, but then if you hear his disembodied voice.
Mm-hmm.
Snakes are great.
20 minutes in an interview talking about snake sex on a documentary is the most us thing that I think has ever happened on this podcast.
This is the content that people come to us for, Aaron.
No, look, there's not a complaint that's coming out of this mouth. You fit in really well here is all I'm saying, and you should come back.
Thank you. I will come back anytime. I'm having a great time. Also, I felt comfortable enough to talk about snake sex 20 minutes in. So.
There you go.
There you go. You did that.
It's our disarming qualities.
Oh no, don't die.
No, it's allergies. I'm allergic to the world.
Right.
Me too.
All right, sort of bringing this back around.
Well, let me interrupt real quick. I'm gonna jump the line. Yeah. So kind of linking off of a Cozy Den. You recently published a game called Longing.
Yeah.
I played that when you linked it on Twitter, and I thought that was super great.
It's cool. It's real cool.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you. So I feel a little bit more vulnerable about that one because it's my first Twine game ever. And I just didn't know how they worked, and I'm an okay fiction writer. And that's really amazing here. Thank you so much.
I've only played a handful of Twine games, but I'm like super interested kind of in how they work now because it was really cool to play, and I appreciate you publishing it. So thank you.
That is awesome. Yay! Yeah, so both of those games came from my Patreon, which is like how I'm able to make these weird games, basically. Like I'm spending, I can, because I have support there, like monetary support, I can spend time making stuff that, publishers wouldn't necessarily buy or something. It's just like something that I'm making and putting out into the world. And so, that was I wanted to write a Twine game. I really like Anna Anthropy's Twine games. I think there's like one cyberpunk and one witch Twine game that I really love. And in one of them, you're a cyberpunk person and you go to a spa and it's amazing. That's like the game. And then in the other one, it's like you're doing a ritual and you choose what animal you're going to sacrifice. And that kind of determines the type of demon you become.
Oh,
and neat. They're all about kind of body transformation. They're kind of trans things. So I loved them. Yeah, so, exactly. So I'm like, cool, I'm in. Body stuff, gender things. And so I kind of wanted to do something like that because I had just seen The Shape of Water. Which I am like so into. It was amazing. I'm not into monster slash fic. I mean, like, I love monsters, but I'm not, I never considered myself a monster sex fan, I think, until Guillermo del Toro awakened it in me. Like, I don't know. He awakens all kinds of things in me. He's an amazing director. I love Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
It seems like
that movie was brilliant.
Yeah.
Like,
he seems like he'd be a cool person to like just hang out with or have him like advise on monster creation for like an RPG or something.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I love go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say, that's gonna be the next thing. We'll try to reach out to him and see if he wants to make an RPG with
Oh my god.
In the circle.
If Guillermo del Toro made a role-playing game, it would be the end of the industry. It would just be like
the strongest enemy in the game is the sexy fish man.
Yes. Well, and he has had such a love of monsters. I have a love of monsters.
Yeah. Oh man, Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth. And I love his older stuff. I love Kronos and The Devil's Backbone. Like, I am a huge horror nerd. So.
Oh, awesome. I was so disappointed that we didn't get to see Guillermo del Toro's at the Mountains of Madness.
Me too! He's so good. Yeah, well, did you see how he's making that weird video game now, too? With the Japanese guy I can't remember the name of. Who did
Miyazaki, but the Sony guy, right?
Yeah, he did the Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear Solid, yeah.
Hideo Kojima.
Death Proof, it's something like that.
Hideo Kojima.
Yeah. And he's got the guy from Walking Dead in there too.
Yeah.
Norman.
Yes.
I was obsessed with those trailers for like a week. Like, I was deep into the internets, like watching YouTube theories, and they are wow. And it's got Mads Mikkelsen. I am fucking sold. I am in. I'm sorry. Can I curse?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're in explicit channel.
I love Mads Mikkelsen. He's like my boyfriend.
There were so many questions that trailer brought up, and I was just like, please don't wait a year before you put out another one, because what is this? And
I know. It's gonna make me buy whatever. Like, I don't have a console really that I have a PlayStation 3 that's like my partner's, and like You know, I played Life is Strange last year. I'm very behind on videos, and like that game is gonna make me freaking buy a new whatever console it comes out on. Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, it's your fault.
I'm sure if you wait, they'll have a special themed console you could buy with like crazy Death Stranding logo crap on it, maybe in like gold or shiny oil looking.
With like a fetus controller or something.
The fetus is the power button. You gotta like, it's a Rita's fetus, and you have to squeeze it to turn the power on.
It's a VR headset that just has hands over your eyes.
Oh my god!
Oh, I would buy that.
Oh my gosh, I don't think
I would craft that onto my VR headset, so I now will have googly eyes on the Pan's Labyrinth. That is a great idea.
That was terrifying. That was a terrifying monster in Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I saw that movie with somebody who had to like walked out during the film because it was just too intense, and I don't blame them. I was not expecting that level of intensity.
The bottle scene was real rough.
Don't remember the bottle face thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The war was the scariest part of that movie.
Yeah. The war was real messed up.
Yeah.
Real messed up.
I love how he does that. He juxtaposes real life horror with fantastical horror.
Yeah.
It's great.
Turns out the real monster was man all along.
Well, it amplifies the strange by putting against a backdrop of normalcy.
Yes. Absolutely.
Like really messed up and angry normalcy. Like the Spanish Civil War was not normal. It was bad.
Yeah. That's what I loved about the Fish movie was In the Shape of Water, was that the villain was like oppression, was like the patriarchy basically. His villains are great. They're always like evil white dudes.
He has a superpower for correctly identifying the villain, right?
Yeah.
And then like building the rest of the story piece around it. It's really
Absolutely.
great.
And for making monsters who you can empathize with. And so the monsters become the metaphor for the social, it's like the pure monster metaphor. Basically the oppressed person is the monster, or the person of color is the monster. There's like Lindsay Ellis does an amazing breakdown of The Shape of Water and the history of film and how I love her YouTube things. They're amazing. But basically how there's a history of monsters stealing women from dudes in film, and how that plays into like how he purposefully plays with that trope and basically subverts it in The Shape of Water. And instead, the monster is like an empowering thing for like people who feel monstrous.
I posted the link for the Lindsay Ellis thing into the chat. So those of you at home, you have a reading and watching list. And also Ash in the chat says she directed me towards somebody's Twitter who said they would absolutely make us a fetus controller. So,
Awesome. I'm really happy to hear that.
I do not want a fetus controller, but everyone else is welcome to it.
I was about to make a joke about how there's going to be a quiz on the reading list next week, but the fetus controller just destroyed that. It's not even funny anymore. Why?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So there were like 4 hooks for questions in the last 5 minutes, and I was going to jump off one of them, Zach, but I think you get the time.
I mean, I'm gonna, you know me. I'm gonna bring it back. So you make small press, very indie, queer coded, unusual games, right? What would you say your pitch is to cishet white dude D&D player? Like, why come over to this side of the fence? We've got lesbian stakes. What is that path that you envision for them?
So I don't know, because I'm bad at talking to the status quo. I think that I think that for me, the way that I think about it is like, not that you should necessarily come to this side of the fence, but that there is a world of games out there that you might not know about, and you should check them out because they will teach you things. There are so many cool techniques that you can learn from all different kinds of games, like different strategies for running the game, different strategies for creating NPCs, shortcuts, like how the mechanics interact with the fiction, how they don't interact with the fiction. Do you need mechanics? Do you need dice rolling? I think all of that is really interesting to investigate when you're talking about the medium of role-playing game. Right? I don't know, that's what got me into indie or small press role-playing games, because like I never played D&D very much, but I was a White Wolfer. Like, really? I did all the could you tell?
That doesn't track at all. No.
It was the subculture that got me, right?
I can totally see that.
Yeah, and I think that's super cool. Like, it's subculture that gets D&D people too, just a different subculture.
It absolutely is. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, and I either approach is totally fine, but you're basically playing the blockbuster, and there's like all these artists making really cool stuff that like moonlight, or like I guess the Fish movie can't really be. The Fish movie was a blockbuster. That's not an indie movie anymore.
Yeah.
But, the Fish movie tracks with my lesbian snake game. It's like in the same genre. And like when you think about it that way, I don't know, like try other things to learn stuff. That's what I think.
That's a really, I totally 100% agree with you there. I came from D&D and sort of discovered stuff, and am still sort of walking my way through indie games to get the full education. To state the question slightly differently, are those sorts of people in your mind when you make your games, or is it more important to you to speak to different parts of the different gaming subculture?
That's a great question. It's interesting because I think that as a creator, so I went to art school. I'm going to reiterate that. Before I got into game design, I was doing art. And I think that you can create things for a number of different reasons. I think people like to imagine artists creating in this perfect vacuum, and, they don't have to worry about money or family or anything at all. They're just making what they love. And that is like in no way, shape, or form how artists actually are in the real world. Like, artists have always had, patrons. Michelangelo had patrons, Basquiat had patrons, writers have patrons, Hemingway, So, money is always a factor, and I think audiences are too. But that being said, I create what I would want to play. I kind of create for myself. Like, what am I interested in playing? Is it doing something that I think is interesting in a design way that even if you're not into lesbians or snakes, you would still be into, basically? You know what I mean? Like, you'd still want to see how those mechanics work in a game. And, and also I think visibility is really important. So in games, so usually when I design games, I try to represent people from minority groups. So I will often write, I try not to write white people. I will try to represent like queer, genderqueer people, and basically communities that are not often represented in games, because I think that is super important. So those are my design goals, I guess. And then
manifesto.
Yeah, and like who the hell? I mean, who knows like who that audience is? Like, fucking elves and Tolkien are gay as shit, and that's basically D&D. And they just did that whole thing that came out. And they're like, did you know that elves are gender fluid? And
have they not always been? Is my question. Whenever I hear that, I'm like,
Okay, let's talk about Lee Pace in The Hobbit. Okay, let's talk about that for a second because he is gorgeous, and I goddamn love Lee Pace. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's all the same audience. It's just a matter of it's a cultural question because like who are my games visible to you? Like who can actually see them? Who's going to find them? Sometimes it might be a D&D person, it might not be, and I don't actually. Either one is great. If you're a gamer and you're interested in stuff I'm writing, that's amazing. If you're not a gamer,
yeah,
I don't know. That's a long rant.
It was good. It was a good rant. It was a good rant.
Cool.
Yeah, if we get people talking long rants, excellent. All right.
Cool. Okay.
Please feel free to rant.
I will.
Although it goes back to the original point, with the snakes, the lesbians and snakes. If you're not into lesbians or you're not into snakes, how many people are not into at least one of those things?
I don't know.
If we're being real,
I don't know. Like, it's interesting. I made a YouTube video about the male glance. I don't know.
I saw that,
yeah. The video is okay. The article is amazing that inspired it. It's basically just like talking about how stories about women or not, cis male things are kind of just don't get attention because it's just not the status. It's not like the status quo. It's not like the main thing that we're talking about. And so I think that is I think that's a real fear and a real problem that I struggle with for sure. Like people kind of have to sign on to my nicheness as a thing, I guess. Yeah. Even if it's not really niche. It's nicheness in disguise.
Yeah, it's a more mainstream or more broadly palatable idea that is disguised as something niche if you don't know what you're looking at or you're not expecting to find it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, so the next game I'm working on for my Patreon is a David Lynch inspired game.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And like David, I feel like I am in the same position. Like I feel like not to compare myself to David Lynch, he's a master. But I mean, I love him. He's got so many issues, but it's fine. Like, he does this weird auteur stuff, and he makes art school projects mainstream movies. And like, not many other people do that, and I appreciate him for that. Like he does the weird stuff, and like I that's the stuff I love, and that's the stuff I want to do too.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah. It's fine.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a tangent. Earlier you were talking about wanting to have representation for marginalized groups and all that sort of thing. How do you feel about, like, say, a cishet white dude wants to play like a native trans woman or something? Do you think that that's a thing they should feel okay exploring, or is that something they should only do if there's a member of that community there to like make sure that they're not fucking up and being stereotypical? Or is it even a marginalized person's job to correct them for that, because that makes you kind of have two jobs at the table because you're there to play and to police almost, and that sucks? I don't know. What are your feelings on all that?
That is an awesome question. I think the answer ultimately is yes. You should play that character. Because I think the magic of role-playing games is that you get to walk in somebody else's shoes. And it has been scientifically proven that if you, when you read a book about somebody, you gain more empathy towards them. And it is the same with role-playing games. If you are role-playing a Native woman and you're a cis man, you are gaining more empathy towards that person. You might not be, you are definitely not doing it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is no way you can have the lived experiences of that person in real life. But you can research them, you can learn about them, you can have empathy for that. And if there is someone else, if you're lucky enough to have a Native woman at your table, you can ask them, am I doing this right? Is this upsetting? Did I fuck up? I'm sorry. And I think that I did 2 YouTube videos about this, actually, how to role play marginalized NPCs, or how to GM marginalized NPCs and how to role play marginalized characters, because it's basically a question. Like, I wrote this lesbian snake game. Is it okay for non-lesbians to play this game? Yes. That's why I wrote it. I wrote it so that people who are lesbians and people who aren't lesbians can learn about lesbian culture if they play it. It actually teaches you about it. And I think lots of games are designed that way, to be teaching tools. There is some this is a complicated question, because in LARP there's some problems with this. Obviously, you shouldn't be wearing blackface in LARP.
Don't do that. Nope.
And it can be a little bit more problematic in kind of a Orientalism way, or an appropriative way, in LARP, because LARP is different. You're embodying people more than when you're sitting around a table telling stories. And it's a small difference, but there's a lot. If you're interested in that, there's a lot of talk about that, in Nordic LARP groups who have made some terrible mistakes.
The horror stories that come out of some Nordic LARP groups are troubling.
I love Nordic LARP. I think it's amazing. I love how Nordic LARP aspires to elevate gaming to something that is academic and serious and meaningful, as opposed to just fun. It's all of those things, basically. I love that about it. But not all Nordic LARP is great, and just how not all American LARP is great, And there's some representation issues, because a lot of the people in those communities are white.
Yeah. I mean, you got to respect on some level, just fucking going for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to police yourself a little bit in some of those situations. So yeah, that makes it kind of it's an interesting situation.
It's whenever you're, it's interesting in general, I think, as a political issue in America, when it comes to race and gender. I don't know, probably about 8 years ago now, I played this Nordic LARP in America. It ran in Boston. It was called Mad About the Boy. And the concept of it is kind of Why the Last Man, the comic books.
Okay.
Imagine there's an apocalypse. All the men have died, but the women have survived. And the LARP is about figuring out what to do with the last bits of sperm that we've saved in order to continue the human race.
Oh, okay.
And when I say women, this included, women, femmes, and trans women. So anyone who identified as a woman was welcome to play this LARP. And there were also characters that represented all of those. We just scienced it out, whatever. Whatever. Hand wave. Yeah. Who knows how a plague like that would happen? Gender is a construct, whatever. But it's kind of like a social experiment. And people flipped out about this LARP because men weren't allowed to come. And this was a contentious issue. And it's okay for different affinity groups to have a game that's theirs. That is fine. If a group of Native Americans got together and said, this is a Native American only LARP, that would be fine. And I would not feel sad that I didn't go to that. And so I think it's just, I don't know, these issues, it's a cultural issue. It's not just I don't think it's a gaming issue. It's an issue.
Yeah, because if a bunch of dudes threw a men only LARP, it would be them sort of leveraging their own privilege it could become them leveraging their own privilege to gatekeep people out of the hobby, as actually happens in very unpleasant ways.
It could.
So yeah,
it could. And historically, that's a little bit more problematic, right, than a dealer. However, all men's spaces are totally fine too, right?
Yes.
And so it's, I don't know, it's complicated.
Yeah, well, I think the and I mean you can't exactly like score your own privilege, and like it's not like a card you have that you can compare to other people's, right?
Yeah.
But like the more that you probably have, the more cultural cachet you have for just being the kind of person you are, probably the more careful you have to be about that sort of thing, I would imagine. About being exclusionary to people who are unofficially below you on the social ladder, right?
Absolutely. I think that in a lot of ways it is like I understand kind of the anxiety about coming to a game with that privilege and doing something wrong, right? Because it's like very easy to do, and you're potentially wielding the most privilege.
Yeah.
And I think that the easiest way to get over that anxiety is just to accept that you're going to do something wrong and apologize when it happens. Like as a white woman, I also wield a lot of privilege. I'm queer, I'm genderqueer, but I'm still white. I'm like middle upper class. Like I grew up in a middle upper class family. And so that's a lot of privilege I wield, and I mess up all the time. So yeah, I don't know. Just try to apologize and fix it.
Yeah, it's what you can do. I mean, I've often used as a cishet white dude my role-playing time as an opportunity to step into someone else's shoes who I'm not. And obviously I started D&D, so that started with like, I'm a dwarf now. What does that feel like? But when you start moving on to other games and you play what are ostensibly potentially real people, like people of color, people with queer identities, women, things that I'm not. I do appreciate that opportunity. I often struggle with the sort of tension of it's an expression of privilege to just not do that and not worry about it and sit back here and just be a white dude all the time and not sort of put myself out there to cause problems. But it's also an expression of privilege to do that thing and make someone else correct me when I fuck it up, or so that's a really hard balance for me to
Have you heard of the X card?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's one of the best tools for this. Like at conventions especially, sometimes as the GM, I will use it the most. And I'll be like, no to that rape scene. Sorry.
Oh God.
Right. If in case anyone's not familiar with the X card, you want to explain it real quick. It's basically everybody gets a card, and if they're not cool with something, you bring up the X card so that you can halt the situation and move on with it from it. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. It's basically a safety tool. You're exactly right. And then if something comes up that anyone has a problem with, like I'm scared of clowns. Legit scared of clowns. If clowns come up, I tap the X card. Sorry, no clowns in this game. Yeah. It can be something that sounds silly like that, or it can be, maybe a sexual assault scene that is growing uncomfortable. Which, I've had happen in Monster Hearts. Like, sexual assault is kind of a part of that game. I don't know if you've played that game. Vampires. Sexual assault monsters.
Yeah, wow.
Just one big allegory for sexual assault. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think elves are kind of similar in a lot of ways, but depending on the elf. But and that's fine. It's a fine metaphor, and it's good. I think it's good to talk about. It's just like you just got to be careful. It's sensitive stuff, and not everyone is always on board for that. So I think just having a safety mechanism to be like, that's too far. Can we try to do that a different way? I need to draw a boundary with this. No more with this, please. I think that's great.
Yeah, one of the questions that we've had, at least amongst ourselves, is trying to figure out how to implement something similar in online spaces, because a lot of the games that we do are online, and that's a lot harder to convey easily in a virtual space.
You know what I do online? I do this.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm just like, I mean, it looks kind of silly, but then everyone like knows, like, oh, what's
Yeah.
going on?
You immediately get the visual
Yeah.
of the arms. Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
think also it's good to talk about on air. Like if you're in a Twitch game, I think it's fine to be like, hey, let's pause and talk about this for a second. Like not everything has to be perfect and produced, you know, like you can have a moment where you're like, what? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. Or yeah, it's totally fine. We don't have to do that.
I don't know. We're pretty polished. I don't know if you have space for that. Yeah, that's actually a thing that we've been bouncing around internally and getting a lot of good value out of these conversations we've had with folks over the last couple months about sort of developing our own set of best practices for how to deal with that sort of thing on stream. Like, do we stop now and talk about it? Do we like drop vid real quick and discuss it and then come back and just say what we did wrong? Like, how do we want to do that? Yeah, that's a conversation we've got going on.
I personally, so I'm actually about to start running a playtest of my cyberpunk, my non-violent activist cyberpunk game that I'm working on.
The DJ game?
What's that?
The DJ game?
No, a different one.
Okay.
I'm working on like 100 things right now. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not the DJ one. The DJ one is a fake game. I'm excited about that too, for sure. But this one is it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and it's based on kind of like William Gibson stories and like Mr. Robot and hackers and Halt and Catch Fire. It's a very like, you're a group of hacktivists and you're 10 seconds in the future and you're really stylistic and everything you do to fight the man can't actually involve physical fighting. How are you doing it?
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. Ryan Gosling's character from Drive is one of the playbooks. There's I don't know if you've read many William Gibson books, but Casey Pollard from Pattern Recognition is one of the inspirations for one. And then there's an anorak character who like, I don't know if you've heard the term anorak before, but it's kind of like an otaku, like they're like a media nerd, like they're obsessed with something. So those are the types of characters. Anyway, I'm going to be running that on Twitch, Sean's channel, on Sean Nittner's channel. And
which channel was it?
I think it's called Actual Play. It's run by Sean and Strash. Strash is working on like Blaze in the Dark hack and stuff like that. I don't know. They're same circles. Yeah, so I'm playtesting it on Twitch. This is my story. And I was kind of just trying to decide if I should do the playtesting questions on air or off air. And I was kind of like, I think I want to do them on air because I want to teach people how to ask playtest questions.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah.
Right? Like,
cool.
I don't know. That's important to me, and I think it's a hard thing to do. And I think it's important to model stuff like that for the community.
That's great. Actually, that dovetails with something we talked with Andrew about last week. They were talking about how they'd done all of their design work for Girls by Moonlight on stream and just like a very visual, very open and public process because they couldn't find any examples of how to do the thing. So Andrew decided to do it themselves on stream so everyone else could see them struggle through it and do the thing.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm on the same page. I feel like I met Andrew once or played a game with Andrew once, but we're like on the same wavelength for sure. Like modeling behavior, I think, is really important in communities. To kind, I don't know. It's like be the person you want to see in the world.
No, it's very Piagetian. I think I come at everything from an educational angle, so I really like behavior modeling. I really like sort of the dissemination of information and having because you can go online, you can go on YouTube and you can find like a walkthrough for a video game level, but you can't find a lot. And you can find like how to change a flat tire. You can find like how do you brew beer, but you can't find how do you design games. Like it's just not there yet.
Or how to playtest something.
Or how to playtest something, yeah.
Which is hard. Playtesting is hard. It's definitely like takes a lot of practice and I've seen a lot of people do it, so that's how I learned how to do it, you know. And I just want to spread the love.
That's awesome.
If
That's
you
awesome.
ever
Good for you,
need,
thanks.
if you ever need playtesters, I mean, we've probably got like 20 or 30 people at this point that we can throw at projects. So seriously, let
Like
us
to
know.
send them a PDF to play like at their house, or
Well, we've got, I think, 4 nights a week we actually stream on Twitch, and then we've also got some side games running that are just like one shots and whatever. So
that's cool.
we can definitely put stuff in the rotation and get people to try it out.
Playtesting is important. Yes, I think that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, feedback. It's design is all about iteration. So you know, you make it, and then you find out ways to make it better, and then you do that again 100 times.
And then you're sick of it and you publish.
Yeah, exactly. Until you're like, okay, whatever, this is fine.
It'll do.
But that's true.
Project.
That is true. I think you can work on something forever until you know.
Yeah.
You're never satisfied with it.
Yeah, that's kind of the the pitch we make to the people who come on. Just, we're totally willing to help however we can. If you need like a signal boost to our tiny little segment of the population, we'll do that. If you ever want to come back and talk about new projects, we'll totally do that.
That's so nice.
Yeah. At some point, I want to get everybody we interviewed into like a big room and have like a little buffet and drinks time, and everybody just talks about cool stuff, and everybody's best friends forever, and we just have matching friendship bracelets. But they're snakes.
We're doing that crawfish boil, right? At PAX South. That's how that's working.
I can do that. That would be doable.
Okay.
I don't.
Where is PAX South?
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Oh, weird.
So South is San Antonio in January. East is Boston in like April, and then West is right around Labor Day.
Seattle, right?
Yeah, Seattle.
Yeah.
And Unplugged.
Well, yeah, now they have PAX Unplugged in Philly.
And then
and they started that like 2 years after I moved out. I was very unhappy.
Yeah, I'm unhappy about it too. I'm thinking about going next year.
Dear sir or madam, this is unacceptable.
Yeah, PAX Unplugged sounds more like my speed now. I followed all the PAXs for years, and now like tabletop PAX sounds much better.
Yeah, well, there's always been tabletop stuff at the PAXs. It's just been like the minority.
Yeah.
And from what I heard about PAX Unplugged East, it was great. Like people really liked it. So.
Yeah, it seemed to get
all my friends that are still in Philly thought it was awesome.
Zach is not bitter. It may come across that way, but it's just the camera adds like 10% bitterness.
And Monty Cook are the two things. The two things.
Yeah,
that's cool. I'm sorry. My convention budget is like $0 right now, so I'm basically going to Origins this year because it's like in my town.
Yeah, I mean we've got a toddler at this point. Like our ability to move about the country is very limited.
Which is why the internet is so amazing.
It's great, right? This is awesome.
Yeah,
I get to do this.
Yeah.
I don't live near like pretty much anybody on the podcast. Without the internet, this wouldn't be a thing, and I would just be lonely and not playing tabletop games with people. So
I know the internet is an amazing tool that brings people together, and if anyone says anything about the internet, they're wrong.
Some parts of the internet were a mistake. Some specific parts, but we're not going to go into that. And
they'll get better.
Podcast.
It does look like we're butting against the other end of our timeline, so I guess
okay.
We'll do the outro so you can get to sleep. I told you I watched the timer. So why don't you give us your whole elevator pitch on all your stuff, and then we'll do our outro, and you'll be good to go.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what my elevator pitch is. It is that I have a YouTube channel, and I'm making videos every few days, and I'm pretty excited about them. They're about all different kinds of topics, just kind of like what I'm going through with my design process, and random thoughts I have about gender and gaming communities. And then I also have a Patreon, which is kind of funding the YouTube channel, and then also these small games that I'm working, including my upcoming David Lynch game. So That's super cool. I love it. It is my happy place. And I feel like there's one more thing that I can't think about it right now.
YouTube, Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, those are my two big project things. And I do have finished games. So I do have like a Cozy Den, which you can buy at Drive Thru RPG, and Itch.io. I think that's how you pronounce that. And then also the Twine game I just made that we talked about briefly.
Well, you've also got... Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, please. You finished. I thought your video froze, so I thought you were done talking. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Technology. Yeah, no. My Monster Twine game is about monster love. So, monster love, it's fun and that's free. So, check that out too.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got contributing stuff. You had a setting for Monster Hearts 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've done tons of contributing stuff. That's one of my favorite ones. I made a scary Nazi punk town in Ohio that you can play in Monster Hearts.
Wow. Okay.
Before Nazis became a thing again in America.
Oh.
So it's kind of serious, topical.
Yeah.
But Nazis are the bad guys, obviously. Like Nazi
bad
punks.
guys. Okay.
Yeah. Not Nazi punks. They're bad. And it's just about like kind of a small racist town and kind of playing through that. It's a cool setting. If you ever beat up punks in the 90s as a punk, because you were like a punk and then you beat up Nazi punks, this setting will speak to you. I never did that, but I had many friends who did. So yeah, I have that setting. I have a setting in Vale Cascade. It's like a cyberpunk setting. Where you play mer vampires trying to get to the club.
Wow.
And just like random stuff like that. I've written cyberpunk stuff. I have a short LARP in feminism, #feminism book, which is a great anthology. It recently won an award. It was like in a museum. It's like super, prestigious. And it's about selfies. So that's the game. And then I also made a game about called Mobilize, which is about lesbian mechanics in World War II. And that's part of an anthology of women in World War II called Words. All those games are absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So those are probably my highlights for the things that I've contributed to. They're all like on my website. Like I've contributed a bunch of stuff.
I have to say, you have worked the quick, like, 5-word blurb for Play My Game into, like, a fine art. It's like, Mayor Vampire's going to the club, lesbian mechanics in World War II, punk Nazis in Ohio. It's like 4 words, and I'm like, I'm fucking in. Let's do this.
I'm working on a Cthulhu game.
Too.
Oh, what's that?
Working on a Cthulhu game. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm working on a Cthulhu Dark game. I don't know if you know Cthulhu Dark. It's the it's like the indie version that Graham Walmsley wrote. And you play. It's set in a lesbian commune in Michigan, like outside of Detroit. And you're in a house that's kind of evil. And I don't want to give anything else away.
So it's not a cozy den? It's the opposite of that?
It is the opposite of a cozy den. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Kira, thanks again for coming out. It was really great having you, and like we seriously would love to have you again sometime.
Absolutely.
If you have time
this
in the
is
future.
Super fun. You're all amazing.
Aw, thanks.
Thanks. I got you.
Yeah, this has been another Improbable interviews thing, and we didn't screw up too bad, so that's something. Except I'm really bad at outros. Right. I'm realizing right now.
We did all right.
We
should have planned this part through more thoroughly.
I didn't put this on the script. There's no script. This is terrible. Just gotta play through.
Who needs an outro script?
So if you like our shenanigans, you can go to patreon.com/thatdnd podcast and throw money at us for whatever reason. We're also on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook at whatever that website is .com/thatdnd podcast. And that's all of our stuff. So for me and Zach and Mike, thanks again, and y'all have a good night.
Good night, Internet.